Welcome to the Valley of Outlaws podcast with me, Will Flindle. A podcast for those taking the road less trodden, and a podcast for those seeking more. Welcome to this episode of the Valley of Outlaws podcast. Today we have Phil Grice joining us, innovator, thinker and leader in the golf industry. Phil's experience ranges over 30 years, having started out as a golf professional and working his way into management, becoming chairman of the Golf Club Managers Association, to leading golf club redevelopment and relocations with clubs such as Royal Norwich. I first met Phil on the beginning of my own entrepreneurial journey. His ability to look forward, to be open to new ideas, and to think differently is what makes him stand out in the golf industry, but also in normal life. He has the ability to see things from a different perspective and has the bravery to take risks to try them. Not only is he a fantastic thinker, but he is a man willing to give his time to others. A man full of love, full of passion, a Liverpool fan, but also a family man. So, without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. Outlaw number 5, you are. What an honour to give you that title.
Outlaw number 5. That makes me sound a lot sexier than I really am. Outlaw number 5.
Well, the reason I wanted to get you on is firstly because I think we've built a very strong connection over the number of years we've known each other, and by a chance meeting. And one thing which I've always been kind of intrigued and very kind of respecting of with you is your ability to connect with people and help inspire them to go along on what you can see, your vision, your dream, and kind of bring the people with you and kind of build that group and that kind of momentum together. And I think what's so important with people today is that people feel such an isolation, and when people try and start something and go a bit off to the left or to the right to the normal path, they feel this kind of lack of support and lack of ability to really make moves forward and really believe in themselves. And I think with you, when I first met you with the wallpaper, I think the energy you gave me towards the idea really helped me move forward, and it's something which I thought would be so interesting just to talk about further and understand how you got to that mindset and that position in your life. So I'll start with just an intro question so everyone knows who you are, then we'll go into that. So first question is, in your own words, who are you, what do you do, and why do you do what do you do?
Phil Grice. I joke about it. I'm a failed golf pro who is possible. I'm still a PGA member. I'm probably the worst golfer in the PGA. And I kind of think it's quite funny to a degree. Left home when I was literally 17 to follow my career to be a golf professional golfer. Realised maybe 21 that it was unlikely to happen, and it was a tougher route than I had the skills to navigate around. So leaving home, not being able to drive, getting to tournaments, I was green as a gooseberry, which is kind of nearly been a star quality of not knowing how big the mountain is different times and still thinking I can conquer it. So I think there's been a lot of luck in my life, but I've kind of made the luck, if that makes sense. So going off and doing it, I would advise my kids not to do what I did, but the reason I'm where I am is because I did.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I've nearly contradict myself a little bit. And, you know, when I got my first big role, because I worked for an organisation that had golf courses, they bought a golf course in Norwich. I remember being asked at 21, do you want to go and run this place? And now when I see it, it was like, whatever they think and putting me in charge, but they obviously seen something. But the whole thing of, I didn't even know where Norwich was. And I literally it's not like it's that long ago that you didn't have Google, you didn't have the internet. It makes me sound really old. But so you couldn't just flip on your phone and go, where's Norwich?
Yeah.
It was literally, I'm going to have to buy a map to see where this place Norwich is. I didn't know because I was 21 and actually the geography of the country was not on my radar. So there's lots of things like that have kind of happened. But the bottom line is I've stumbled through being a golf pro, being a golf club manager, to owning a golf course with a business partner, to getting out of that and then falling back into it again by kind of default, and then working on a project that was relocating a golf course, which got me right embedded into the management of golf clubs and golf venues. And again, by chance, ended up as chairman of the Golf Club Managers Association for the UK and Europe, and just strange scenarios. And then when we did the relocation, we ended up second in World Golf Development of the Year. And your stock raises high and people want to know you. And I haven't set out to do anything. Certain things have just nearly been, I always call them like in the bath moments. You're in the bath, and I haven't had a bath for like 20 years, but in the bath moments where you're just on your own and you kind of dream. And I can remember Faldo winning the Open and wanting to go and practice, and my dad taking me to the golf course like the second the Open. It's going to be dark soon, because as you know, the Open finishes at like 7 o'clock on a Sunday night, and hitting balls. And I can remember Geometric George on his shirt when he won it. Was it Lytham or wherever it was? And mimicking him and think, I want to be that person. I want to be that person. And knowing that I'd been quite a good sportsman when I was younger, played county football and county rugby and ran for the county. Running was slightly different, but everything else was team sports. And I was pretty good at being the loudest person in the team and reveling with being part of a team. So to go into golf was kind of the opposite of it's a single person sport. To move away from home was kind of single person. To move to Norwich was kind of single person. There's a lot of things that I bite my nails. I'm really, really, really insecure as a person. But in life, I've done lots of things that are nearly like a baby bird jumping out of a nest for the first time, not really knowing what's going to happen. And I come back to the leaving home and doing all the different things. I don't know if it was naivety, it was just my own drive to do it, but just really kind of random things that go against the grain of everything I am. Of, literally, you meet me from the train station, I think, I don't know where I'm going at all. I really don't. And I'm Joe Useless when it comes to things like that, So, but just strange that it's all kind of contradictions. It's really interesting.
Did you have a vision? And so before you moved and when you wanted to be that professional golfer, did you have that vision in your head? You saw Faldo, you had this kind of picture of who you could be, and it was like you're working towards that? Or was it just intuition and instinct driving you to say, I need to get away from home and I need to start building for myself?
I don't... it's really interesting. I'm a middle child, and I have a whole rant about this. I could get on stage and do this, because I have a whole rant that my older brother was really talented footballer. He was at Arsenal, captain of Scotland schoolboys as an Englishman, all sorts of different things. Really, really, really brilliant sportsman, but 6 years older than me. And then I came along, so he's 6 years older than me. So by the time he's 9, 10 and he's actually fun, I'm still 3 and I'm not really doing a lot. And then mum and dad had a daughter, and I was meant to be a girl. So then, and mum and dad, well, mum certainly was pretty brutal. Mum was always like, you were meant to be a girl, and you got this little ginger thing. And so very quickly, I was kind of, and I'm not the Harry thing. I'm not a spare, but I was a spare. So when we grew up in Scotland, I was an English kid growing up in Scotland in the 70s, when Scotland were wrecking Wembley, and it wasn't great to be English living in Scotland. Mum and dad had a few pounds because dad had a good job, and then they bought a house, become a hotel and stuff. So I sort of stood out, and then on top of that, I've got a bright ginger head. So it was really difficult time. So you kind of realise that the best way to get on was to take the piss out of yourself and be the first person to say something, because somebody's going to say, ginger. And it was, and the world we live in today is, it's a stratosphere away from where it used to be.
Yeah.
People were brutal.
Yeah.
And, you need to Google Bernard Manning and stuff like that to see how the world used to be and how people were. And it was, I suppose, it's like a defense mechanism of where I got to was trying to not be alpha male. I get put in a group situation and I see myself doing it. I go really quiet. And I've talked to you before about pace lead, of looking at the pace of something and watching it and then joining in at the pace and then leading it. And I don't consciously do it, but I can see myself being really quiet in a room, and by the end of the night I'm leading the room.
Interesting.
Which is, but I'm really rubbish in that first stage. And I talked to my wife about it yesterday, Tracy, about Darcy, my oldest girl. Her ability to engage with people, she naturally smiles.
Yeah.
And that, everybody says, oh, she's lovely. But I like watching on how people influence. She influenced because she's got a beautiful smile and she's interested. And I'm not interested.
Okay.
And I should be. And selfishly I am when I see that it's going to be good for me and whatnot. And that's really distilling it down, because it makes me sound pretty ruthless and horrible, but it's not. I'm just kind of, I need to find the pace of the room.
It's a safety net.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
It's interesting.
And so, connection to Scotland, connection to that. Did you, when you're growing up, and you said, it's difficult being an Englishman in Scotland. Yeah. Was that difficult, like in terms of school and stuff like that as well, connecting with people and feeling like part of that community?
Sounding different. So I used to literally speak nearly with a Scottish accent when I was with my mates. And when I come home, they go, you sound all English, because I went back to speaking like me. Yeah. So I just wanted to fit in.
Okay, interesting.
Desperate. So yeah, and it's, again, when I look back at that, it's I many moons ago I went for some hypnotism, and the stuff that came out just was freakily amazing stuff that I obviously knew, but I parked somewhere in my brain, and then the stuff that came out was really intimately about the insecurities of growing up when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and trying to fit in when I didn't fit in. Yeah. And not, mum and dad had said to you at the back end, mum and dad had a hotel, so we were at 10, 11, 12. I just go up my bike in the summer at like 9 o'clock in the morning with my mates and come home at 8 o'clock at night. Yeah. And not that nobody was bothered. I don't mean make my mum and dad sound heartless, but they just...
It was a different time, wasn't it?
Yeah, they just accepted I went out and I'd come back when I come back. Mm-hmm. And it was, you kind of did everything to fit in. Yeah.
I find it so interesting in the whole, because even referring the way you did to, playing team sports to the single sport, to leaving to do everything for yourself, it's almost like starting a blank canvas sport. Or, I don't know, I wouldn't say a defensive move, but it's not, because it's like a bold move to say, right, I've got to build how my life needs to be from now on, from 17.
It is just everything that is naturally me. I kind of push against and do the opposite. Okay. Which is just weird, because I am that insecure person. So when you go, well, to leave home at 17 and go, I'm talking at a time when you didn't have, I left home in 87, 88, 87. So there's no mobile phones. I got 320 pences on a Sunday night to phone my mum. Wow. And that's what I did on a Sunday night. Went to the phone, put 320 pences in, spoke to mum and dad, and when money ran out, that was it. And I spoke to them next week. Wow. So I look at my daughter message me Darcy was in Liverpool every night, message me, and we maybe talk at midnight, just, I'm going to bed, how are you, how's your day been? We'll speak in the morning, so the phone will probably ring in a minute. There's all of them things that I look back, and I'm randomly quite a family person, as much as a lot of it sounds the opposite. So mum and dad have passed on. I miss my dad desperately, and just not to be able to speak to people. Yet the world that we live in today, we just communicate with people all the time. So I look back and go, I just left home, and I look back and I think, was it naive? Was it brave? But it's kind of, I have repeated the same thing.
It's interesting.
You know, I've got great friends in Colchester and we moved away.
Yeah.
I said, Tracy, we need to move. And now we've made friends. We've, you know, it's just that it's a whole load of contradictions.
Interesting.
A lot of contradictions, you know. And coming back to, you know, the playing golf, of being insecure, well, you don't get more putting yourself out there than standing on the first tee trying to waggle 3 inches of metal or 15 foot around yourself to hit, propel a missile in front of a load of people.
Yeah.
It is like, it's really easy to look stupid.
Yeah.
You know, so why don't you pick something that's, you know, go and play darts or hide yourself in a football team? Because I could have been a footballer. I mean, loved the football and really lots of little things like that. I don't know. I made some decisions that I would really love to have my time again. I can't tell you how much I'd love knowing what I know now.
Of course, yeah, of course.
You know?
So what was it about golf then? What was that connection for you which really took you down that route?
I think on a couple of occasions when I played really well, and you've heard me say before, if I never played golf again, it just wouldn't bother me. But if you told me I couldn't practice, I'd be devastated. I love practicing, just really love practicing. Love hitting ball after ball after ball after ball. Could stand there all day, and apart from getting tired, it just and I immerse myself in it. So it's very easy if you've got that love to become quite good at something. As I'm now not a great golfer, I don't practice very much because I'm technically not on site anymore. Yeah. So I can't just go and hit a bucket of balls like I used to be able to do when I needed some downtime. So, but what came about it was on a couple of occasions playing really well. And when that happened, the feeling that it gave me was like no other. And winning stuff as a junior, as you know, and
did it make you feel like you fit into something? Because you talk about Scotland feeling like that isolated person. Was golf a place where you were?
No, because every time I went to a golf tournament as an 18, 19-year-old, so I turned professional far too young, and I turned up to a golf tournament, I got that whole insecure feeling again. I was like, I don't even know I should be here. I don't know where to go. I didn't drive, so I had to get lifts to tournaments and stuff like that. So everything about it could not have been, I couldn't have made it more hard for myself. And that's why I go back to, if I could go back and learn to drive when I was, I didn't learn to drive till I was 20 because I didn't have the money to buy a car, because I was trying to be a golf professional and scraping by, giving a few lessons and working in a golf shop and then practicing every other minute that God gave. I couldn't have gone about doing it in a more cockeyed way, and which made it impossible, and it was never going to happen because of half a dozen scenarios that just meant it was you need a support mechanism around you. And I remember being at Bisham Abbey doing my first year of my PGA, being 19 I would be at the time, and meeting with a load of guys from the Lawn Tennis Association. There were guys training to be tennis pros, and they were all there funded, they were all being looked after, and we were 20 guys on our PGA course, and we were all funding ourselves to do this in a lone sport. And probably half the guys that were there, mum and dad had loads of money, paid for them to be there, made life was kind of easy, they did have the cars and stuff. But the other half were me, were sort of half talented people who were really unbelievably dedicated, that wanted something, but they were swimming so far upstream, it was just never going to work for them because there was too many things against them. Sure. And back then there wasn't the money and stuff like that in there. So there was, when I look back now, it was never ever going to happen, and it was naive, but that didn't stop me dreaming. And the dreaming thing was, you know, was a huge part of it. And I felt when I got that first job first real management job at Sprowson Manor, I felt king of the hill. So I got the same feeling being put in charge, and you know, having 7 or 8 assistants, and you know, whilst I was director of golf, it was technically you didn't have a GM back in them days, or certainly the proprietary world. So you were the person that was in charge, and it was there's a steep learning curve, but it gave me a kind of I don't know what the right feeling is. If you're winning a tournament, doing well, everybody's looking at you, and everybody's looking, I wouldn't say up to you, but kind of they are to a degree. So being in charge and having to suddenly public speak and having to be the lead person on a committee and stuff, there's all of them things that kind of made you feel important and made you feel like you were somebody.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think has drawn me into always wanting not to be in charge, but to be the responsible person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's where I feel like I'm in a corner and I'm trapped, but I work best from that situation. Yeah. So relocating a golf club, relocating, it's just like, where would you start if you've never done it before?
Yeah.
But that challenge was just, when I went to Royal Norwich, it was the graph showed 10 years the membership had been in decline. So there's your first challenge: stop the decline, grow the membership, and we kind of did with literally no budget. And can you help relocate the place, and can you be a pivotal part of it and shape people's thinking? And you know the story. I lived 2.5 hours away. I had 2.5 hour commute, 2.5 hour commute home every day. And when I look back again, like, would you leave home and do it? I would tell my kids not to. My kids were saying, well, this is what I'm going to do, Dad. I'm going to travel 2.5 hours every day to do this job. To then, I'd say, what are you doing? You're absolutely barking mad.
Yeah.
So it's been constantly that scenario where you go, you can't do that. And I go, I can.
Yeah.
And not...
And you tell your kids you can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is I am completely conflicted with steering them so much that they don't find out for themselves.
Yeah.
And that is, as a parent, it's a hideous thing.
Yeah.
It's a hideous thing because you kind of know what made you a better person, or what's helped mold you into what you think is a better person, because other people might not think I am a better person, but what molds you into that is the fact of maybe not knowing something and going and learning it and finding out about it. So when you smother your kids in guidance, that stifles that natural mechanism that they might really benefit from.
Yeah.
But I do come back to, had I had a bit of guidance, so it's finding that balance.
Yeah.
That guidance might have steered me in a different way.
100%.
And who knows?
Yeah. What does connection mean to you? And not of a golf ball.
Yeah. It's I've probably got. They all say you count your real friends on one hand. I could count them on two hands because I've moved around a lot and I've got some great people. As I've got older, it actually means the world to have people that you know that you could phone at 2:00 in the morning and they would do something for you.
Yeah.
And it is that. It's not a safety net. It's as you get older in life, you kind of don't need more friends. You just need people who not think like people have the same values as you do, but they're all different. So you've heard me talk all the time about football teams, and whether you're a golf club, I can relate every analogy back to being part of a football team.
Yeah.
And I see my network of friends as like a football team. Some are goalkeepers, some are midfielders, but we all got a common bond. And that is, you fit right into that category. We don't have to speak for 3 weeks and nothing changes. And where has that kind of come from? Now, ironically, most of my really good friends are Liverpool fans. but that is, we share the same oxygen to a degree. Yeah. So we've got something that when...
You've got a base.
Yeah, even when we're not chatting about anything, every time we get together, and it's the first time today we've not done it. I know. We talk about where we're at as a football team.
Yeah.
And it's the qualities of our players, and I think that whole Jurgen thing. I have a connection when you go to Anfield and they sing "You'll Never Walk Alone." You just feel like you're with your family. And I know every football fan will feel that they've got that. I just think that I think that whole side of things is you just have a kindred spirit with some people, and I don't know how that comes about. And it's often all of my good friends would do the right thing. They would do the right thing. And I haven't got many really good friends that wouldn't do the right thing in the moment. They found a wallet with a load of money in it, they'd hand it in. And I'm not not saying that that's what it's about. It's just, they just would.
Yeah, decent people.
They would. And, I often say to my kids, you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
Don't ever, it's part of who you are. If you say you're going to do something, don't be that person that phones up an hour before you're meant to do something and not do it.
Yeah.
Right? Don't be that person.
Yeah.
And actually, go out of your way to help people and do stuff, because regardless of, some people in life go, I don't know why you bothered doing that. And some people do say to me, oh, you waste your time and that. But actually it makes me feel good when I help people.
Yeah.
So, if I've got friends around me that, all my friends would do that.
Yeah. Well, it's
yourself, I asked you for something, and I mean that we never, but you disproportionately help me get over things that I just can't do. And, it's,
I mean, my motto is give more than you take.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
I used to, when I had the golf course in Colchester, we used to do this thing called BNI, Business Networking International, and then you do breakfast. So do breakfast, but they have a saying, give as get.
Yeah. And
it was not through that. I've got a really, really, really good friend, Trev. He's godparents to my kids. And I learned I met Trev when I was 25. I'm 53 now. I met Trev. Trev was like the nicest guy on the planet, and he couldn't do more for me as a younger person. He's a little bit older than me, and he's a sparky, so he would help do stuff, and he's just a really practical guy, and I'm not a practical guy. So he would just do stuff, and he would make things happen. He doesn't know this, but he kind of taught me a huge lesson at that point, was to really go out there and help people. And I just, ever since, feel obliged. If Trev phoned me at 3 a.m. and said my car's got a flat tire, I just wouldn't even bat an eyelid.
Yeah.
And it was quite life-changing to a degree, but I didn't know it at the time. And then I had the skill to give a golf lesson. So when we had Sprouse, and I met Trev at the same time in Norwich, I could go up and down a driving range, and we used to range walk when we tried to build the business. And range walk is when you just go up and down the range and help people.
Yeah.
Saying, how do we build the teaching side? But it become really interesting that I could walk up to you and I'd watch you hit a few balls. I'm king of the hill because it's my driving range. I'm head pro. I'm in charge. And I could just move your hand a little bit and tell you to bend your elbow, and you hit it great. And you'd look at me and think, he's good, right? So I joked about this when I give a golf lesson. I often say, but how good am I? When you hit the ball really well, I take the credit for it. And I do it properly, jokingly.
Yeah.
But actually it's not. It's I'm helping you, and that makes me feel great.
Yeah.
And there's a real buzz from that. So then if you surround yourself with people who like helping people, who do the right thing, that connection is really interestingly, I moved away from my family in the Lake District, and my brother moved away, and I don't really see my sister much. Mum and Dad have passed on. But I've kind of got a surrogate family, and they're all people who think and act and are the same, and the world is a better place for WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Because we can connect, and I use emojis so that everybody knows when I'm joking, and I can be ironic, and I can be Victor Meldrew, and I can be all of them grumpy people, and people know I'm being grumpy.
Yeah.
And I can stay connected, and I don't have to always pick the phone up.
Yeah.
So that side of things is, we do it. How many times do we send one message and then 30 messages and then we don't speak for 4 days?
Yeah.
And I kind of love that connection. And it makes, I feel like, as I said to you, it's a surrogate. I've got a secondary family and
community.
And I love having good people around me.
It's so important, the community aspect. And I think we all do build that. And as you said, it's people you meet through your life. And what I mean, from my perspective, what's been interesting is that a lot of the people I've met who I've built in my community have been above my age groups as well. So like yourself and some other people who I look up to, but I have strong connections with because they align more to my way of thinking than a lot of people in my age group do. Like it is strange how life works out like that. But it's really interesting.
At your age, I was exactly the same. Every one of my friends was older than me. And I have kind of nearly surrounded myself by people that I aspire to, bits of them. I'm really good friends with Brian Gunn and people that were brilliant at what they did. So he was and such a brilliant guy. He's had tragedy and bits in his life, and him and his wife Sue are just the nicest people. And you take something from that and go, if I can be 10% of who they are. Trev, as I said to you, a godparents to my kids, Trev's got 20 houses and he's built that up from absolutely nothing as a sparky.
Wow.
If I could be 10% as dedicated as him to be focused on my best mate in the world, Scotty, phenomenal retailer, helps run a really big organisation, and just blindly focused about doing his job brilliant. So if I could be 10% of him, and I don't sit and think about that, but when you ask me about that whole connection thing, I've kind of surrounded myself by people that aspirationally have really, really, really done well in their life, and they're kind of leaders in their field at what they do. And I kind of want to be in that gang.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Is that saying you're the average of your 5 closest friends? Which is, and that's what people don't, and I think a lot of people my age don't recognise that, when you're surrounded by people who just want to go clubbing, just want to drink and go to the pub and stuff like that, and they don't have that ambition outside to improve themselves, don't look anywhere other than yourself to blame why you haven't got to where you've got, because if you're not surrounding yourself with people who are pushing further and looking beyond the short-term satisfaction, then what can you expect for yourself?
No, I totally agree. And it's I'm old enough to sort of say it without sounding like an old fart. It's a very, very different world than it was when I grew up. As much as I refer to being an English kid living in Scotland, and that was pretty brutal at times. And I think everybody has a bit of that. The world you live in now, from when I look at my daughters, the fact that everybody has an opinion, you're taught to have opinions about things that really don't matter, that are the biggest load of horseshit, and you think you should look a certain way. I didn't have that as a kid in real terms. 4 TV channels. News was, and now don't get me wrong, there's always been propaganda and you've always been fed bullshit, and never more so than now are you fed bullshit. But you're fed it from so many places nowadays that how you work out who you are and what direction you should be travelling and why you should be travelling in it. So when I wanted to be a golfer, lots of different reasons, but it was never to be famous. It was maybe because I wanted to be Faldo, and subconsciously there's trappings of, well, you hold the trophy up and everybody loves you and you've beaten everybody else, so your competitive spirit comes in. I see kids nowadays who just want to be famous.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking because as the failed golf pro, you're in the top 0.1% of people who play golf. But then in my world, I'm Joe Average, and there's only 1% of my world, golf pros, actually ever make it to making the kind of Ian Poulter style living. So it's such a minute success rate that when you look at kids wanting to be famous and they set about that, it's such they think there's money and all the things that come with it. It's pretty heartbreaking to go, that's what you dream that you want to do. And then everybody's got an opinion on everything. And it's the keyboard warrior side of this world. I go back to, I never had any of that. I didn't. So there's lots of things that I can sound like an old man because we didn't have, but in the same vein, lots of great things.
Well, I think your era, you were probably more connected to actually more what it was to be a person. And now it's like, we have so much of a digital realm. We have this own character we actually have to live up to perform at that level. And that's something which is just quite sad in a sense, because how many people actually really connect to themselves, understand who they are, to really know what they want. And, you know, these kids who want to be these celebrities, what's the fulfillment you're going to get from just being famous? Because you're going to be used as a model to just do this for someone, this for someone else, this for someone else. And you're not going to have a voice, really. You're going to have a voice which someone's going to pay you to say something. And
it is you are just a sheep. You are literally. I watched my daughter go to school, and there's 20 versions of her that look exactly. I know they've all got the uniform ones, so they would do. But the point being, sometimes it's quite incredible that how do you develop your own personality and your own individualism, and it's individuality. Sorry, how do you do it when there's so many influence and factors telling you that you're to this or to that, and some of the crap that's on telly, and what we have become is we become a nation of voyeurs. You know, literally go back when Big Brother come on, and we're like, why are we watching people in a house behave randomly? That's kind of now Gogglebox, and I like Gogglebox.
I don't even watch that.
I'm watching people watch telly. It's like, what the? Stop! Fucking, what are you doing?
No,
Put the telly on and watch yourself if you want to watch it.
Exactly.
You're watching people watch it. But that's kind of, whether it's the Kardashians or anything, watching through the keyhole of other people's lives is just kind of random. And that is now seen as the barometer, the pace that kids set themselves, which is random.
It is. Were you raised to think outside the box, and how did your parents kind of influence you to be the person you are now?
Don't really know. I have always naturally not challenged to find a better way, to find a different way, but always kind of, I think, thought differently to a lot of people. So it's not about being a smart ass and finding a different way of doing something, but always not being scared to do something fractionally different. And I think Mum and Dad really didn't have a huge amount of influence around that side of things. If anything, it would be more the other way. My dad was a really moral person, as I said to you, if you're going to play for a football team, you play for that football team. If you're going to do, he was like, you stick to your guns and do something. Mum never really got that. Mum said she was a bit troubled. She was a functioning alcoholic. I don't know. It's kind of difficult to say whether what they did do is they moved from England to Scotland for my dad to follow his dream to get a really good job. They bought a big house, and then they decided to follow their dream and turn it into a hotel. And then they moved back to England because they knew I was at that sort of critical school age of sort of 13, and moved back. So they did certain things that probably have shown me that lifting house and home and moving to follow something. So that's probably as much as I would want to not credit them, but they were just like, as I said to you, would I let my kids go to London at 17 in that era? No. And I don't know whether I'd look back and go, it's not because they didn't care, but they just were naive and just let me do it. Or were they the other way around? Am I giving them not a lot of credit? Did they think this will be the making of you? Because that was a different... My dad was brought up in here. His dad was killed in the war. People joined the army. People went away and did things. And so my dad didn't see moving as a huge thing. Yet when we went back to Workington, all his friends were just doing the same jobs and doing... So he'd had an adventure.
Yeah.
So maybe subconsciously they have affected my thinking as to not be scared to not have an adventure, but to follow what I think.
Take a bit of a risk.
Yeah.
How do you think the role of the father's changed? If you compare your dad to the way he was helping you grow up, to the way you and your girls have that relationship? And also, it's a different example. I know you've got one sister, two brothers, so you've got a mix between boys and girls. But with two girls now as well as a father, there's huge responsibilities for a man to teach their daughters how to receive love and how to give love.
It's a really strange thing, Will. I was, until we had kids, a lad's lad. Go out on the raz with my mates, work really hard, play really hard. I'll go as far as to say beyond selfish sometimes to do what I wanted to do, or to buy the car I wanted, to buy the watch I wanted, or to stuff that when I look back, I think if I'm a time again, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't do that again. You then have daughters, and the overriding feeling is about protecting everybody and being, making sure everybody's okay. And it's totally changed my outlook on life. I think if I had boys, I would be, let's go to the football, let's do this, let's do that. Yeah. And I'd be the worst version of me. Okay, having had girls, I think it's kind of made me see the world very differently. But what the love that they give you, and I don't know it would have been any different if there were boys giving me a hug, or boys at 7 hold my hand going to the football. Would it just be the same? I don't know, because I never had. But the love that you have back for them, from them, is it's better than any money. And I often think how you value things in life, and whether you've got lots of money or lots of this, it's really interesting that as you get older, whilst you need money to give you choices to do things, it's nearly the source of brain drain. It makes you think wrong about the world, and actually having no money, or not have money is totally irrelevant if you've got great people around you, and you're watching a film, and you got your daughter sitting cuddling with you, and then you have a cup of tea, or you go out on your bike, or you do. There's no money, can't buy them things.
No, exactly.
And actually, the love you get from having kids, and as I say, I'm not so sure that it's girls, or it's just because I've got girls. Just, it's unbelievably fulfilling having kids. Was
it quite natural for you to be a father, or did Tracy have to?
No, I loved love every minute of it. Yeah. And that's, my dad never had a dad, because my dad's dad was killed when my dad was 6.
Wow.
And it was something he often used to say, and this was about doing the right thing. And when my mum was being a bit loopy la la and different things like that, my dad never wavered. Yeah. Because he said, I never had a dad. There's no way I'd ever walk out on you. Yeah. Because on a number of occasions we said, Dad, why are you still here? You deserve better than this. Yeah. And my mum was functioning, so that she was a really good person until she'd had a drink, and then she was not. the same person. And then the next morning you get up and we didn't talk about what happened, you know. And it was a kind of strange scenario. My nana, who's my dad's mum, my granddad was killed at the very end of the war. She had a 6-week-old child, a 5-year-old, 4-year-old child, and a 6-year-old child.
Wow.
And the war had ended.
Yeah.
And he got killed after the war had ended.
Oh, God.
On his way back, there was a vineyard that was mined, and he went into it. And,
oh, God.
And so everybody thought he was on his way home. My nana never went with anybody thereafter. So she dedicated her life to bringing the 3 kids up. Yeah. So my dad's moral compass come from, he had to become the dad of the family at 6-7 years of age. And so doing the right thing comes from my nana did it, my dad did it, who's her oldest. And I kind of think that inspiration is where it's come to me. Yeah. And I have so much pride when I see touched on the earlier with Darcy running the marathon and stuff. Just do the right thing. Not doing it for any adulation, just be that person. And the fuel that gives you. So I'm picking down, I'm out Saturday, we've got some friends coming over. Sunday I'm going back to Liverpool to pick Darcy up to bring her home. I couldn't be more excited about her coming home for 4 months. Yeah. Can't explain it to you. Yeah. It's not more than Christmas Day, more than Liverpool playing the Champions League final, more than anything. Can't tell you how excited I am. And when I turn up to Liverpool, she'll give me the biggest hug on the planet. Yeah. And she'll squeeze me to the point where, right, let me go. You know, and I went the other night with Izzy to the Arctic Monkeys, and as I said to Izzy halfway through, their guitars are angry, aren't they? It's a lot of noise. And she was bouncing and having a great time. Yeah. And just watching her. Yeah, yeah. Because she's a little bit of a troubled soul at times. And she's finding her way, and she's in that sort of point where she's just getting older. Yeah. So to see her in a happy place, it's, you've put my phone on charge over there, and it's not plugged in. It's sitting on something. It's giving me charge. Yeah, yeah. When I'm with the kids, it gives me charge. Oh, wow. It gives me charge. Beautiful. And I'm not that person, but I've turned into that person.
So at least really nice. So would you say that they now inspire you to be the best version of yourself at home, at work, mentally, spiritually, physically, whatever, in the whole way? They're like the driving force behind you committing to what GTM was, because when we spoke about it 2 years ago, it was this whole dream, and it's slowly evolving into what it could be. But I think a lot of people, like parents, want to show an example to their kids that do this. You can, if they can see me do it, then they can feel they can do anything as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I explain that becoming good at golf is your golf clubs and a golf ball, and only you practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing at all the different levels. One, to get the ball off the ground. One, to get consistent at it. One, to hit it exactly the same distance that you want it to go. One, to swing the club at the same speed that you want. All of these things are building blocks to eventually becoming good at something. And I think it's really interesting that some of all of the people in me, it's really interesting. I'm articulating something all the people I'm really close to are really good at sport in one way, shape or form. And that's because if I give you a tennis racket, you're not naturally brilliant. You're going to have to learn to be good. You've had to put time and effort into stuff. So maybe there is something, because they've watched me with GTM and GC earning nothing. Yeah. And going like, why? You could just do this. And I'm like, no, but I want to build something. Yeah. And I don't see it. And I know Tracy would like us to earn some money at some point, but I see this as like learning to play golf. I'm building something that will be good. And it's not in GTM wouldn't be where it's at without someone like yourself really just poking me in the right direction at different times when I'm down, and all the help that you give. And then on the other side, I've got Ben, who's quite a driver in things on the other side of things. And you build something, and you see how it comes together.
Yeah.
And you then start to, as I said, articulate that that's actually quite a thing that you've reproduced over and over and over again. Yeah. So the kids do see me doing that. So the Darcy conversation about me wanting to run the marathon, she knew that she would have to put in however many weeks of training, and she went out and did it. And every single time she finished a training run, she phoned me up.
Yeah.
So she's kind of doing what I did when I was practicing, trying to be good at golf and stuff, of telling my dad, and maybe looking for that little bit of a, not pat on the back, but actually sharing in, I have the same values.
Yeah.
So that whole dedication of wanting to be good at something. It's interesting. Izzy's not that outwardly going. Izzy loves the success of something.
Yeah.
She's still got to get her head round the failure bits.
Yeah.
So I often say that, if I can't win, I don't want to play.
Yeah.
And that's who I used to be, because I was unbelievably competitive. But it's a metaphor of that I hate being rubbish at something. I really hate being rubbish at it. Which is why I don't play so much nowadays, because I hate being rubbish at it. But the building something, everything you do, you've got to go through being rubbish at something to learn to become good at it.
It's patience. And that's what I was going to say. I feel like the thing which maybe Izzy will see from you building your companies is the time and the patience you've got to have, and the consistency of turning up each day to go a little bit more. Because it isn't one big step. It's lots of little mini steps and bricks to build you up to that platform.
Well, it is. It's seeing you sitting on your laptop at 10 o'clock at night. And what's interesting is, apart from the inflow of information, of emails and stuff like that come at you that take your time, that never used to be there, there is also the ability to reach out there, say a podcast, and listen to a podcast. You've got to find an hour to do that. And you can learn and be better at things quicker because there's more capacity to do it. But also that nearly disproportionately means you put so much time into lots of different things. And if you listen to a podcast and take one thing away, it's brilliant. But you do then listen to 100 podcasts, or you read 100 articles, or I look, my phone will say your average phone time today was 2 hours 30 or whatever it was. It's like Jabers. But actually, I read.
But do you think that's bad, or that?
Well,
because mine's about 6.5 hours.
Well, but it is because I read my emails on there and I look at things and somebody commented not so long back about on LinkedIn. Oh, you're very sharp on LinkedIn. And I took that nearly in not a good way, because I'm thinking, do they think I just sit on LinkedIn all day? But actually, I have to take in information to do. So the whole building something, there's a lot of distractions, and there's a lot of bump around stuff for you to get the information, or to get the stuff that you need to be able to then distill the good stuff. And actually sometimes, yourself, you can read a book, and I read 20 pages today, and I haven't taken anything in. I literally need to go back, and I've just read it for the sake of reading it. So that sometimes is really hard when there's a lot of information out there, and you're trying to take stuff in and have an opinion on stuff. And as you get older, and maybe people trust your ability to distill information, and maybe your ability to also see slightly around the corner, there comes a little bit of responsibility with it as well, to be on the money a little bit, and not to be having an opinion on something where you've not got all the facts. So it's kind of, it's interesting. We've touched on the golf side of things, with Liv and everything that's happening now. And it's nearly like, I don't think we've got all the facts yet. So actually pinning your colours to one mast or whatnot is maybe And that's nearly metaphoric for quite a lot of things, because, AI and all the other things that are out there, the world is just rapidly changing, and the ability to, I often joke about, if I say to you 9 nines are 81, 7 sevens 49, I could give you any set of numbers, and I can, because as a kid we had to learn them, because we weren't, I was at an era, which people listen to this will laugh and probably not get, that you weren't allowed to use a calculator in school.
Yeah.
Everything you had to do had to be written out. And actually you could get the sum wrong, but you got score for actually. Well, I was at the point being probably 14, 15, and they said, right, you're allowed to use a calculator now. And that was like, that's cheating.
Yeah.
That's cheating. So what? Why have we learned on? But that was a change in the world.
Yeah.
So suddenly now, every bit of information you want is technically out there. So you don't need to know stuff. You need to know where to find stuff.
Yeah.
So that's analog and digital. That's a game changer. But now, because of that, the world has got so much information. How do you work out what's right and what's wrong?
Exactly.
And that becomes, you could get into a heated debate with lots of people, and all 10 of you have opposing views, but technically you're all right, because where you've got your information from and what you've learned from and how you see things.
That's so funny, because I had a session with my mentor yesterday, and we were talking about this, and it was in reference to Liv and Saudi. And I was playing devil's advocate with my dad the other day about, he was going, it's outrageous, the Saudis support golf, I can't support this, I feel sorry for McElroy. And I was like, yeah, I do too, like I get it. But it's like, we have all this kind of like disdain for Saudi, but we don't forget what our country's done and what the US has done. And it's like, where's the balancing of the books here? Yeah. And I said to my mentor about this, and he goes, there's an analogy I want you to listen to. And he goes, there's 3 blind monks, and they've all never been around an elephant. They've never seen an elephant. And one of them's put at the trunk, one of them's put at the stomach, one of them's put at the tail. And they're each asked to describe what is an elephant. So one on the front goes, elephant's like this leathery, snaky thing. And the other one goes, no, it's not, it's a boulder, it's a big boulder. And then the one on the back goes, no, it's a thin thing with a furry tail. And the guy then goes, well, you're all right and you're all wrong. And it's like your perspective for how you see something is, everyone's got their own little perspective, and it is right and it is wrong. And it's like, there isn't this clarity of black and white, really. It's whatever you've been fed can influence you in that way. And understanding that is...
Couldn't agree more. And the ability to be older, and it's not just about being older, but actually realising that there is always 3 opinions. There's your opinion, their opinion, and probably the right opinion. You know, and realising that everybody sees it from a different perspective. I was given a really great bit of advice years ago, and when you're in the world of golf and managing a golf club, people will come to you with a moan or a gripe or whatever they want, and it's always write it down, tell them you look into it, and go and find out the facts.
Yeah.
Because don't take everything on face value, because that face value is generally contaminated with somebody's viewpoint. It could be self-interest, it could be 100 different things, but the bottom line is they're only seeing it through one set of eyes. And go and have another look. So it's every bit the same as lining a putt up. You know yourself, you line a putt up and you see the movement, and you put it and it doesn't move like you think, and you go around the other side and look at it and think, I should have come around here and had a look at it. But that's life. Yeah. So always say to the girls, right, don't take that on face value. Just do a bit of research and find out if that's actually right, because there is an opposing view. So somebody wrote an article recently that golf club membership is shrinking, and it's gone down like 1%, and it's up 50% on what it was 4 years ago. Yeah. So it's still 49% ahead. Yeah. So it's how you write that headline is telling of possibly what your mindset is and what you're trying to achieve. And actually, you can choose to be on that roller coaster or not be on that roller coaster. Don't get on that roller coaster. Have your own opinion. Take a view that there's probably 2 sides to it, and do your research and find out. Yeah. And research makes it sound a bit, but depending on which newspaper you read. And as you get older, you suddenly realise that the newspaper isn't, using the term black and white, as you would think it is. Because actually, it's somebody's opinion and they've got a reason they want you to think that way. So the difficulty you've got nowadays, if I said to you, where do you get your information from? There isn't a true source. There physically is not a true source to it. If you look at, we touched on, say, the golf, it winds me up more than you could ever imagine when I see even some friends of mine that are editors and writers in the golf press calling them the Saudi rebels, the golf rebels. They're not rebels. You touched on earlier. We went to war on a complete lie and killed loads of people. Who the hell are we to say, oh, but they've got terrible human rights? We went into Afghanistan and blew the place up.
Yeah.
Right. Well, based on what?
Guantanamo Bay,
Yes.
Guantanamo Bay in America.
Yes.
So, help people there without having any charges. It's
and it's not about having much of an opinion on this stuff, because I can't worry about what I can't change. But let's not get on the moral high ground.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah.
So that whole informational thing nowadays is really, 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 really interesting, because depending on where you get your information, and 90% of everything is slanted, it's propaganda for something.
Yeah, and the majority of people just read the titles.
Yeah.
So how would you describe then a good leader? Well, what would you describe a good leader is then in this day and age?
We've done some stuff before, haven't we? And I love the pyramid. I say a good leader is strong top down, but he's strong top down because he understands it from the bottom up. He understands what, why, where, how. He communicates that well. He's enthusiastic, or she, he, they, whoever. You've got to watch what you say nowadays, because somebody will get offended because they want to be offended. The bottom line is, if you want people to follow you, you've got to explain to them why. They've got to understand what the objectives and the common purpose are. You've got to explain to them, if you're asking them to jump off a cliff, that this isn't, going to be harmful. So it's getting everybody to understand why you're doing what you're doing, what the common goal is, and you can't just be autocratic and go, this is what we're doing, and that's why we're doing it, because very quickly people will lose faith in what you're saying if they don't understand the why. So a big part of that. So for you to be a good leader, you need to understand all the feelings that the people are going through. When we come back to, the football analogy, it's to understand the job of all the different people. It's to understand how everybody fits together. And as you get older, and it's something I never paid any attention to, is the being interested in people and giving a bit back, and not just ruthlessly want to win, or ruthlessly want to make money, or ruthlessly want to run a business in a certain way. Yeah, it'll work for 10 minutes, but it won't work forever. And that's, Klopp's a great example. And I know we're passionate Liverpool people. But
it doesn't matter, we can talk about it.
No, but look at what he's done. He's had 3 gigs in his life, and he's changed. Yeah. He's changed minds, changed Dortmund. Yeah. And it took them from places they'd never been to where they're going. Yeah. And now Liverpool done exactly the same. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, there is Jose Mourinho's out there, but look how many clubs he's now had. Yeah. And what technically is his legacy? His legacy he'll have a trophy cabinet in his house with all his stuff, and that's absolutely great. But would you rather be Jurgen Klopp or Jose Mourinho? And I'd rather be Jurgen Klopp. I'd rather have a tribe or a community that I buy into them and they buy into me and they follow me, and we've got a real common purpose, and we're not that whole, there's a video that they did 3 or 4 years ago, we are Liverpool, this means more, and that disproportionately moving the golf course from one place to another and building what we built. And you look back now, I'm yesterday's man. Some people will remember you, some people won't. But ultimately, that whole journey was fantastic of the people that you take. And when we built Exton up and different things. And I see it with the kids. I'm beyond proud when I look at my little girls and I see them looking smart, and they're really... we made them both work in the pub from 12 or 13 years of age, our local pub, because I wanted them to learn to communicate, because a huge part of my life was mum and dad at the hotel and stuff, and I collected glasses from about the age of 12 or 13. So I was mixing with older people all the time, and not about being cheeky, but learning how to conduct yourself around people, and learning when to be silent, when not. And as you know, you can do all the training courses on the planet. Tonality and how you speak and how you put across the words is 90% of everything. So learning to have that skill set. And my girls are, when they're working, I love being in there and watching them, because they engage with people. And I'm thinking that's a life skill, because you'll go for an interview and the interview will drift, because they'll just fall in love with you. They'll just like you because they think this person's got something about them.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's being a leader is kind of understanding what makes everything tick. Yeah. And it's being the oxygen in the blood. It's being the cement between the bricks. It's not being the bricks. It's being the cement between the bricks. Yeah. And actually understanding what holds everything together and taking it. As I said to you, I think you need to be top down, so Jurgen takes the blame for absolutely everything, and he never takes the credit for anything. Team played brilliantly. We played crap. It's my fault. And I absolutely love. He's been one of the joyous as a. I keep saying I'm an old fart. I'm a young old fart, but I was old enough to know when we were great. Yeah. Then have 30 years of having a big brother who's a Man United fan. Who just makes me, and we had little bits of keeping us in love, but I never lost the love. Yeah, the pride of what we've done over this last little bit has just, I've loved every minute of it. What's been brilliant is in my girls' formative time of their growing up, they got to see it and got to be part of it, because we've gone to lots of games. As you know, Darcy now works at Anfield she's a student, but she works at Anfield, one of the nice lounges. If I tell you something which I think is the funniest, I go for a Sammy Lee, right? So I'm going for, and I've always said I'm going for a Sammy Lee. My girls probably meant nothing to them. Darcy messaged me last week, or not last week, 5-6 weeks ago, said, "Dad, you're gonna laugh." She goes, "In my lounge, the legends come in at half time, everybody gone out." She goes, "I sat and watched the second half of the football on the screen with Bruce Grobbelaar, Phil Neal, and Sammy Lee." She goes, "I met Sammy Lee." She goes, and she barely laughed down the phone. And I'm like, how funny is it?
Too funny.
But that whole Liverpool, the values, who we are, them living through that and seeing the bit when we get beat in the European Cup final, they're upset. I'm like, that is what that is. Yeah. And it's a tiny bit of life lesson for them, because Izzy has not had to deal with much failure in her life. Yeah. So when we get beat, she's learning that that's part of, and watching how Jurgen conducts himself, he's loving to bits, love that style of leadership. Yeah. I don't want to be Jose Mourinho. It's not about quick wins. It's not about, for me, I love...
It's long-term impact, isn't it?
Building something and getting people to feel that they're part of... there's a guy, Greg Patterson, in America. He's a phenomenal speaker. And he talks about creating tribe. And I've spent time with Greg a couple of times, picked him up from the airport and said to him, "Can I just say to you, when you're over here, I think it's community. In America, you call it tribe." And you might be right. I think if you can build a community, and that community is your workplace, it could be anything. It could be a community of people that believe in the same thing. If you all trust each other, and you come back to the football analogy, everybody knows their roles, and you know when to put your arm around somebody and when to kick them up the arse and stuff like that. But actually, we play together, and we all point towards the same goals. As a leader, it's that common purpose.
I mean, the word kept coming up for me was vision. Like having that vision, getting people along the journey, and accountability. And being accountable for yourself as much as you are for everyone else. It's
we posted something a while back, didn't we? And it was a picture of a guy holding his mobile phone, looking down. It's like a forest, but the phone has got a journey on it, so it's A to B.
Yeah,
and there's a whole part of working out where you're going to, why you're going there, but where you're going and what a journey looks like.
Yeah.
And I see that so clearly every time you're going into a meeting and you're going to say this is what we're trying to do, or you're trying to guide people, or you're trying to work together to a common purpose. It's thrashing out what the destination is and why the destination is. So everybody's clear that's where we're going and that's why we're going there. Now, how do we get there?
Yeah.
And once you understand where the destination is, or in business, it's just an objective, what the objective is and why the objective is, it's then the best route to get there. And understanding that sometimes you come up against a roadblock, find a way around it. It's metaphoric, but it's just easy. It's just that. I don't see it any more complicated than that at all. Once you know where you're trying to get to. And you need to reroute yourself sometimes, but as long as the objective is clear and right, then life's not complicated. And it's a bit the same with pretty much everything. Yeah, really,
definitely. Once you did become a leader, how did you kind of deal with your insecurities? Like, did you suffer from like imposter syndrome and start thinking like, oh, what am I doing here? This is how have I got here so soon? Like, what was that a big part of it early on, or was it something you kind of acknowledged and said, no, I can't accept that?
Lots and lots of times. The first time I ever used the term imposter syndrome, I was invited to the R&A forum, which is the heads of state in golf. So R&A, European Tour, PGA, every organisation gets invited to. Chief exec and the chairman go. And what they don't tell you is when you do the dinner the night before, you have the forum, and it's an open forum where we own a big room. It's quite something, and you're in the big house. So as a golfer, you're at St Andrews and all that sort of stuff. They have this dinner the night before, and what they don't tell you is when it's your first time there, they've got your CV and they announce you in. And they tell everybody who you are and why you're there, to a degree. And it's Ian Patterson, who was the chairman of the R&A at the time. So I come, he announced, and he told everybody it was my first time, and he gave them just a synopsis of who I was. And I just thought, fuckity fuck, what am I doing here? What? I'm in there. I'm like, oh, and you're in a steamed company. It's your first meeting, so you're kind of a little bit not knowing what's about to happen. And my dad wasn't about at that point. And I genuinely looked up and thought, if you're looking down now, I bet you're laughing your head off. How has he blagged his way into that room with them people? Then the next day you have the forum, and I've got an opinion on a number of things. And something, I remember something was said by somebody unbelievably senior about golf, and the Financial Times was doing an article on how golf was going backwards and rah. And I interjected and kind of said, I just need to say that I think you're away with the fairies a little bit. Golf has never been more popular. Golf membership is down because what clubs offer, people don't want. And the world has changed. We have a nomad golfer who is promiscuous. He doesn't want to stay faithful to one club. He wants to play lots of different clubs. So rounds of golf have never been higher. If you look, that yes, we might only have England golf might only have, I think at the time, 650, 700,000 registered golfers. So it sounds like a small number. But 10 million people played golf last year in one way, shape or form. Yeah. From driving ranges to adventure golf so golf's healthy. And that speech, and I sat down and I kind of got a bit of a round of applause, and a lot of people then commented. Lots of people come to me afterwards and said, we never looked at it like that. And I'm really glad you said what you said. having the courage at that forum to say that and to speak up, because I go back to being in that room.
Yeah.
Naturally, the first 2 forums that I'd gone to, I'd have said nothing and I'd have found the pace. And I suddenly felt I had the right to be there, and I had an opinion, and it was valued, and I articulated it well. And that was like learning to swim underwater.
Yeah.
For the first time, open your eyes underwater and going, right, I'm not drowning.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And that, I look back on that gave me quite a lot of confidence to my public speaking.
Okay.
And I fleetingly, whenever I get up, whether I get up and I spoke recently over in Marseille and places like that in front of 150 people about my opinion on stuff. And there was a time when I'd have been petrified. And I literally, it clicks in the RNA forum, speaking up, saying you think people have an interest maybe in what you say. And as long as you don't go too wacky and too far off, and you're balanced about it.
Yeah.
And that's probably my biggest imposter syndrome moment that I kind of overcome. But first time I played in a professional tournament, I remember standing there and thinking, just what am I doing here? The guys I was playing with, they're just, so much better than me. And literally, you fall over and you get up, and you fall over and you get up, and then eventually you learn to walk, and it kind of happens nearly everywhere. Golf's really interesting because you go from being not the best in your 4-ball when you're a kid to being the best in your 4-ball, to then playing in a competition and not being great, but then winning a competition and being nearly the best, to then becoming really good within your club, to then you go to a junior open or you go away and then you're nobody again. So it's this whole series of little fish, big fish, little fish, big fish. And as you get through life, you start to realise that's where imposter syndrome comes. When you go to your first tournament somewhere else, you feel insecure. And then you recognise that you've been through this before. Yeah. And this is actually, come back to the RNA thing, and it's probably the first time again I've articulated it. There was having that breath and suddenly going, this isn't that scary. Yeah. And probably 100 times in my life where you've gone to do something. I remember reading one of these sort of daft sayings, but it was like every day you should put yourself out of your comfort zone. Yeah. And that's that is nearly the same thing as the imposter syndrome of actually putting yourself into somewhere that you don't feel comfortable. Yeah. So it's a very similar thing. Ironically, today I've been invited to a meal after this at Gordon Ramsay's. It's a 10-course tasting menu, right? I'm dreading it. Absolutely dreading it.
Why?
Because I like where I like. And if I want fish and chips, I want fish and chips.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm going to be somewhere where I'm with some really lovely people, and one of the guys is treating us, and they're going to put a meal in front of me, or they're going to put something, and I'm going to take one look at it and think, I'm not putting that mind off. Right? So for that reason, I nearly feel embarrassed about it, because
there's anxiety with it.
When my wife Tracy, she try anything, she goes, let me try that. I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. So there is, and it's really, it's a similar rush that you get. I will get that rush when we leave the restaurant today. Yeah, I think that's over. Done. I desperately want to go there. Lovely people, and I want to spend time with them. But I am dreading looking a little bit of a doofus going, I can't eat that.
Oh, that's too funny.
Not quite imposter syndrome, but it's the same.
It's interesting because I think there's an element of this which is about expectation. Yeah. And I think imposter syndrome, anxiety, stress all comes from setting an expectation for how you think something should be and how you think you should be in that situation. And then trying to maintain to that thing you have in your head. Yeah. And one of the things I've really worked on recently is the idea of just experience. So, for example, with podcasting, I could have an expectation that I have to do this to be a podcaster. But for me, I just want to experience being a podcaster, whether that's being a good one or a bad one. I don't actually care if I'm a bad podcaster, but I want to experience it. Say, oh, I've done it, and I know what it's like. I know what the good is like. I know what the bad's like. But without that pressure you put on, without the expectation, and if in the RNA scenario, without that pressure, once that pressure went for you, it kind of opens up the doors so much more. And I think it's one of the biggest kind of like killers to people really pushing themselves. And one thing I was thinking about when you were talking, the moments before you made the interjection, how long were you pondering actually interjecting? Was it instinctive to go, I've got to say something, or were you like, oh, I could?
Yeah, it was reasonably instinctive, but it is. You're on a diving board and you're going, just jump, do it. And you kind of think, and you know what you want to say, but it's not like it's there in front of you and you trust it. Yeah. You're now about to speak in front of, and I mean, I'm cutting across Martin Slumbers, who's the chief exec of the RNA, and I'm cutting across him saying, can I just interject here a minute? And so I think, whoa, you're only been here 5 minutes. But it was a huge thing for me, and that comes back to I have that on a number of occasions where you jump, just do it, say it, do it, and but what's really interesting, I did an NLP course, neuro linguistic programming, with a guy Jamie Edwards. It was a 5-day thing. It was really unbelievably interesting, and it comes back, it distills back to what you were just touching on there. He asked, it was about it. I'm trying to think exactly. It was about having anxiety on the golf course and helping us with, whilst we were learning to be practitioners at this, it was learning, do we have any good examples? And I said, I absolutely get petrified on the first tee every time I play. And then it's off. It's just, and I've built it up to be something it's not. So he then said to me, well, let me get this right. So, and I think it was a really concise example of, so what is it you're fearful of when you stand on the first tee? And I'm like, well, I just want the first shot to go well. He says, but why? Why? He says, so if you put it in a bunker, who would you trust most on the planet to get out of there? Well, me. So, right. So, and would you swap hitting the first fairway for your dinner tonight? So you'd hit the first fairway, but you have no dinner. I said, no. He said, well, it's not important, is it? So why are you building up to be something it's actually not? And when you get into the pickle, if you get into a pickle, you're the best person to deal with it. So why on earth would you be bothered? Then he said to me, I want you to go to the toilet before you go and play and sit and do these breathing exercises. It's right before you go out. Slow your heart rate down. Because what's happening is you're letting your heart rate get away with you, and you recognize that fear, and you're putting that down to being on the first tee. It's not about being on the first tee. It's just you're building this scenario. So that then comes back to your podcast thing. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Who cares?
Exactly.
Because do it to the best of your ability. Watch other people. Fine tune it to make it better. See how people make it interesting.
And have fun.
And have fun. But if somebody says to you that was a brilliant podcast or that was a shit podcast, it's actually just their opinion.
Exactly.
And Ricky Gervais says about it all the time, about people being offended. Well, I can't help if you're offended. That's your choice to be offended.
Subjective.
Doesn't mean that I've been offensive. That just means that you've decided to take offence. Now that's the same as somebody going, that was a brilliant podcast. Treat it with exactly the same.
Don't bloat yourself off the positive.
And as the would if somebody said, well, I didn't really like that. Well, and
cool.
The amount of times, I put the shirt on and my Isabella would go, right, I'm not going out with you. No, I'm not going out with you if you're wearing that. Darcy will come through and she'll go, I like your shirt, Dad. That's really bright. That's and if you can get through life not caring, but you have your own compass, you have your own values, you enjoy doing what you're doing. That's actually why you're doing it.
Exactly.
It's really nice if somebody says to you that was really good and you get 10 million people follow it and go, that's great. But that's kind of a byproduct of a lot of other things. That doesn't mean that somebody's doing it's really enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly.
And ultimately, the only thing that matters is your happiness.
No, exactly.
That's everyone else is just waffle.
Beautiful. Right, half an hour left. Let's go on to some juicy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. So, what do you make of the Saudis buying golf? I want to talk live. I want to hear honest.
I don't think they've bought golf.
You don't? Okay.
Straight away, I think that they haven't bought golf any more than the US Tour bought golf 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's a transition into has anybody said that they've bought football because they've bought Newcastle?
Yeah.
Has anybody said they've bought golf because Tyson Fury fights out there?
Yeah.
And let's be clear that they used to have the Saudi Invitational and players went and played in it. Nobody said anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's related to you've got somebody going to buy Manchester United.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's Sheikh that's buying it or the English guy that
Jim
buys
Ratcliffe,
it, they're going to buy it.
Yeah.
Somebody's just bought Chelsea.
Yeah.
We nearly went bankrupt and somebody bought us.
Yeah.
Doesn't always mean it's for the it's the way of the world.
Yeah.
And technically money talks, because money, there's a mechanism that the guys, Fenway Sports bought Liverpool because it looked weak, and they knew that if they applied their business model and their integrity and everything around it, that they could create something bigger.
Yeah.
That would be of a profit for them. Now, it's a financial profit. Now, if the Saudi investment fund are going to invest into golf for a different type of profit, and that's to normalize themselves in a world where they've slightly excluded from because they've got their own mechanisms and their own, but they want to normalize themselves by getting involved in golf and publishing, much the same as Dubai has done.
Yeah.
Because you look back 20 years ago, Dubai wasn't Dubai, you know, and it now is this. Everybody's normalized Dubai.
Yeah.
You know how many people die building them buildings and all sorts of different things. And I come back to, it's not the whole moral issues around it. They're incredibly subjective, and it's not dismissing them. It's not at all dismissing where they're at. But if we were going to start talking about morals, there's a lot of other things that we could actually talk about, from whether it's Paul Gascoigne or it's different people, where they've been superstars and we just throw them on the scrap heap, don't give a shit.
Yeah. Because
they've been used and abused by clubs and given too much money and not educated. And also that you could go through 100 different things. That's such a different thing. All that's happened is there's been a narrative created around linking it to 9/11 and all sorts of different things.
It's very much American, isn't it, really?
Yeah. There's been a narrative that's been created to try to prevent them taking over the sport or them having what they would deem as undue influence over something that is owned technically by the US Tour. Yeah. So where do we now stand? Because if we'd had this conversation a week ago, it's the totally different conversation to say, but the Americans have now sold out to them. Yeah. For the max, they've maxed their money. Yeah. And they've used the likes of Rory as cannon fodder. Go out there and speak and do this. And a lot of people won't realise that people think Rory was really vocal. He was vocal because I think he was chairman of the Players' Union or something like that. Yeah. So he was speaking up for people. Yeah. I found it odd that he said he hated Liv. Yeah. Hate's a strong word. Yeah. When it's the scenario that they're in is that they're playing a sport for money, and no different to Ronaldo going for more money or Messi going to America for more money. Right? Where's the difference in Messi? Ronaldo's gone to Saudi, Messi's gone to America.
Have you seen the details for Messi as well going?
No.
So he'll get a percentage of revenue for the MLS league through Apple and the MLS. He'll get a percentage of revenue through all Adidas sales of shirts related to him. He'll also get the opportunity to buy and own a football club in the MLS and do what Beckham's done and build a franchise. So if you look at the financials behind it, I think the MLS is probably gazumped really what he has, but it's just he gets more of a working profit rather than here's your lump sum of cash to come to us.
Yeah.
But the end result's probably far better.
But principally, they've bought him.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
So where is the difference?
Yeah.
So if he'd gone to Saudi, it's sports washing. Or what is it in America?
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a lot of things that are not right there as well.
100%.
You know, and I'm not desperately don't want to get into all the politics side of it because I don't know enough about it. I'm not educated enough to speak about it. But it's obvious for anyone that sees, you know, from gun laws to the racist stuff that happens. You know, I think it's
easy to forget your own problems and point at someone else's, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's just been a narrative created, and I think what people need to see that narrative. It's not saying I'm not dismissing what they've done, but this is sport, and it's people's leisure time and pleasure time, and where they get their getting away from the real world. Whether we put the football on and just watch the football, or we watch the golf, that's the end user. That's what they want. If it's funded and done in a different way, literally, I think I read something. It was like 45% of the sponsors across the tour. It was a really high number, and I made that number up. But it's a really high number of people that are sponsors on the tour have ties and relationships with Saudi and different things. So there was. If you went, right, let's cut them off and have nothing to do with them anymore, well, then there was a lot of people you had to cut out, and then you'd have to start saying, well, where's the moral compass with all these people? That's for someone else to be getting.
Yeah.
I think that we often talk evolution or revolution. The evolution of golf was not happening. Yeah. So there needed to be a revolution in some way, shape or form. The people that controlled the sport, being now the US Tour, controlled the headline, the top of the pyramid, were just regurgitating the same thing week in, week out. Yeah. As a golf fan, I've stopped watching golf. I maybe watch a few of the holes at the very end if I know that it's heating up. It's bland, it's vanilla. It's 4 rounds of golf, 3 of them putting yourself into a position it's like watching a marathon race. Yeah. The only bit that actually matters is the last mile. Yeah. And for that reason, it had become dull and boring. Yeah. And golfers are dull and boring because everybody's got to be quiet. You know, everything about it is sedate. So that little bit more razzmatazz. You look at what the Ryder Cup offers. It's person against person. You could watch the Ryder Cup for 15 minutes and he's just won 2 holes and he's fist pumping and he's going in. And actually, it's interesting, it's fun. And you've seen cricket's done it. So cricket's gone from being maybe a 4-day test, maybe a 3-day test, who knows, the rain might come in. We all wear white because we all look the same as each other. To actually creating teams that play against each other, shorter formats, more interesting formats. And golf needs that. Golf needs a shake-up. That doesn't mean that we're now going to play the US Masters, you know, back to front, left-handed, wearing baseball caps the wrong way around. It just means that outside of, you know, we just need to bring some variety to what golf can do. The biggest thing for me, you see it at Wimbledon, you have a mixed event. I would love to see that when this progresses, they get involved with the ladies' side and they put out 20-25% of the events are mixed in some way, shape or form. Alternate shots, whatever it is that you do, just tear it all up and find a way to get men and women to play together reasonably regular. Yeah. Because I think it sends a fundamental message to golf clubs, because I see it on the ground, men's section, ladies section. We've got these tee times booked, you've got them tee times booked, and we never mix. Yeah. But some of the great clubs are where the mixed events are. The best clubs are where the mixed events are a regular thing, and people come together, and it gets families involved. So you stop this misogynist men and women in different areas and stuff. And I think that from the top down, let them wear shorts. Humanise the players, get caddy cam working, get it where we can actually see and listen to what Billy Foster said. I'm interested. We're back to the conversation of the voyeur bit. Let's hear what the players have said. They've done that with obviously the Netflix series. They're trying to make them human people so that we can buy into who they are. So many of my friends were talking about it. Oh, have you seen this one? Have you seen that one? Because they've never heard them people speak in real life. Because they speak in a press conference where they put a suit of armour on and they're guarded. They come off, they've played great, they've played bad. They ask them the same questions over and over.
It's too serious.
It's just, they just become robots. They're not interesting people. And actually humanise them. So let's find ways of not, look at the darts is really interesting, right? If I said to you 25 years ago, there's a sport, I want you to make it great. You're like, really? It's a pub sport that nobody's interested in. And what they've actually done, they've created fun. They've created characters, pantomime villains and stuff. And whilst people go, well, that's not what golf's about, but it's created interest. So people, Tracy said to me, I've booked us tickets to go to the darts in Ipswich. I'm like, really? She goes, it looks so much fun. And we went and had a brilliant night. Now, it's not something I want to do every week, but it was good fun. And I now have a vague interest when I watch the guys. I've seen a couple of the guys that I've seen, and they were really good. And there is something beautiful about watching a man, a woman, anyone that's really good at their craft. There's something special about it. There's something special, especially if you're part of the masses that know how hard that is to do. And I would love them to, one of the biggest, probably the biggest day of sport in the UK, and in the golfing world, everybody knows about it, when they have the Pro-Am at Wentworth. Before the tournament.
BMW.
From Pep Guardiola, everybody playing. People love it. All my mates, they'll go, that'll be the day that, if they're going to go to Wentworth, that's the day they want to go. Because they get to see their idols struggling, playing with great players in a format that they can relate to. You know, it's
the other one, which I absolutely adore, is the father and sons and seeing Tiger and Charlie Wood. Like for me, that is gold. Like I would watch all of that compared to watching normal golf. And the interaction between father and son.
You're the 100th person that said that to me. Literally, people have said, I would watch that week in, week out to watch the kids of. Now, they must know from the viewing figures that just changing it up a little bit. I'm not saying that that's what you do but change it up. As I said to you, he's having the guys and the girls playing together in a doubles format, and also so that just find different ways of, you know, make it a little bit more fun. Let's see some shootouts. Let's just change it around a little bit. That having a 72-hole tournament in the way that they are, as I said to you, it's like going to the Olympics and there's only one race. It's a 1500. You're just watching the same thing over and over. It's boring.
I think it's the sponsors and the people outside golf who are really progressive the most. So TaylorMade, their little short videos with all the TaylorMade sponsored athletes going and trying the latest driver, then playing the games, hearing the feedback. Oh, that flew differently off the face than I thought it would. That kind of stuff is so engaging. And then you look at the YouTubers. And, you know, the Good Golf, Rick Shields, who their audiences are huge, but they bring authenticity, passion, and a bit of flair to the sport. You go and watch golf, you say, you lose all of that. You lose that excitement because it's brought down to the bare bones and the mundane. And finding that balance is going to be quite difficult to do.
Well, you just touched on there, Rick Shields, just how many followers, viewers, views of his stuff. We know the statistics. And you know what he is? He's normal. He's brilliant because he's normal. And what happens is, after watching some of the stuff that he does, you kind of start to think he's your mate, which is really interesting because you get to listen to him speak, and he has an opinion.
Yeah.
You don't not like him because you don't agree with something or whatever, but he has an opinion. He's like the guy you want to play golf with.
I mean, my question is, why is Rick Shields not leading the coverage for sport on TV? Why is he not the face? Why are the good YouTubers not the guys doing the on-course stuff? Because those are the ones who are... The other guys are brilliant. They're professional. They're fantastic. Yeah. But they're from that era of... They're fitting into what was right 20, 30 years ago and trying to bring it into now. Whereas this modern kind of passionate, as you said, not everyday golfer, but, the nomad golfer who's got their own channel, their own passion behind the sport, having them interacting.
Well, it is you could. I wouldn't mean that he would go off piste, but I would expect if Rick Shields was doing that sort of commentary, for him to just give you a totally different viewpoint 100%. Of what's going on. What you've got now is like a formula that they are scared to move away from. Now, I know they've tried a little bit where they've tried to interview them on the fairways and stuff like that, which you got to commend. I think it's the way forward. But there is, if I said to you, and I think it's not, character's the wrong word because it plays down too much what Rick Shields is, because Rick Shields has built up a huge following because he's become trustworthy, he's likeable, and he's normal. And I mean normal with a lovely normal. It would just be nice for them to shake up a little bit the commentary and how they interact and get, even if they run them in parallel, so you could actually press the red button and go and watch, and just see how test it.
I think what it is because a lot of these guys haven't been the pros in the sport; they haven't played. So a lot of the commentators now, they've been so ingrained in the sport and they've been there and they've performed. These guys who've got YouTube, they know how to connect. They know where they analyze their data. They understand what people love as well. And so their ability to really connect with, because they're connected with the everyday man. They're not really connecting with the professional golfer. They're connected with a guy who wants to play golf, who's a 20 handicapper. So their rationale, their way of seeing things is far more relatable to rather than the technical elements you see.
Well, it's something we touched on earlier. I love a pyramid, but it is they're talking to us top down, and I think Rick Shields
bottom up, 100%. Yeah,
he's kind of different. And it's not just blood smoke up his arse. It is a case that he has the common touch, and I think sports. It's boring to what you've now got it where Ali McCoy is a really good example on TalkSport. People love him. And the reason he was pundit of the year or whatever. Because he is Rick Shields on the radio. He's the guy that you can relate to everything he says. And actually, if something's wrong, you can hear him say, "Oh, come on!" He'd call somebody out. Yeah. He would, and he would laugh about something, and he's as normal a person. So you just kind of like him. Yeah.
I think the other example I just got then was Ben Foster, the goalkeeper who was banned, I think, from Watford from Phil, because he used to have his goalkeeper GoPro in the goal. So he's gone to Wrexham now. He's allowed to film all the matches in there. Does his commentary after, has his whole thing. Ryan Reynolds comes on camera, does little stuff with him on his, and it's that beyond connection to that next level, which is amazing. And it's a connection with, as you said, a real person. He's a professional footballer, but he's a everyday guy.
He's humanising himself, though, isn't he? He's letting us see what it's like to be him. And that is, you come back to all of the programmes, the voyeuristic stuff that we watch on telly now. That is the ultimate thing, isn't it? That, could you imagine that whoever it was, Rory's got a camera on there and he's talking to you on the way around, or you're just listening in to what's actually going on. Now, they've done it in motor racing, so you can hear what's happening there. Christ, if they can do it at 200 mile an hour going around it, surely they can do 100%. It with, it's on a 15-second delay. If somebody says an F and a Jeffer, we can bleep that. But actually, that is what me and you would be taught. Did you hear what so-and-so said? Or did you hear the analysis? Because there's a cracking bit of footage with Phil Mickelson and David Fairty. David Fairty's interviewing him, and it's about a wedge shot, and he explains the mechanism in his head as to how the spin rates and stuff like that. And that's like wowzer. Yeah. So we want to listen to what these guys, what are they saying? What is it that they're saying? And that solid gold bit of information, it's there, and we're not tapping into it.
Do you think now golf is in a position to flourish to be the best version of itself? Like, do you think it can reach its full potential in the current state, or are there a lot more changes that need to happen in the sport before we get to that point of, wow, this is really performing?
It needs. It's having this revolution, but this revolution is who's in control.
Yeah.
And so far what we see is the people that are wanting to take control want to do a different version of it. I don't think it's the best version it can be. I think it's got to stop taking itself so seriously, and it's got to look at the metaphor of the Ryder Cup and find ways to make the 3 or 4 day tournament compelling to watch.
Yeah. Because
of whether it's the fun, whether it's the competitive side to it, whether it's the voyeuristic side, it's got a huge opportunity right now, and this is what I think will end up possibly being missed with the ladies, to actually go, right, let's stop. And if you wanted truly to grow the game, you want everybody in the family to want to be part of that.
Yeah.
So what you touched on earlier is you want your son to look at Charlie Woods playing with his dad, and at 7 years of age, son thinking, that's the way I can get my dad's attention. If I play golf with my dad, then I can do that. You know yourself. That time is unbelievably special. And if you analyse, you're going to play golf with your dad today, that's not the same as going to watch football. You go watch football, you're going to play golf with him. You're going to spend 4 hours with him. You're going to chat to him on the way around. He's going to ask you how you are. He's going to be interested in you. All of them things, you want to stir that up. So when you see golf on the telly, you want to be inspiring people to play the game.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's fundamental. So seeing men and women play together, that sends a brilliant signal.
Yeah.
Because actually, Tracy thinking, I could spend more time with Phil. If I play golf, we could play golf together.
Yeah.
What a great way of getting some exercise and walking 4 or 5 miles. The R&A did that survey a while back, not that survey, that piece of work on essentially health by stealth. Play golf, live longer.
Yeah.
It was evidence that if you play golf, you will physically live longer because of the walking mechanism of 4 or 5 miles 2-3 times a week. That's the best health advice or stuff you could actually do. So I come back to it, not the best version of itself, because for me, it's not, as a real golf person and someone who's worked all my career to increase the footfall in golf, which that's really all I've ever done and tried to do by building venues, coaching people, all that sort of side of things. Golf isn't inspiring people to want to play. And that's its objective. It's one objective.
Oh, I would counter that.
Go on then.
I don't think it's inspiring people to play the way the sport wants it to play. But there are more golfers I've ever seen than before going on the public golf courses with a group of lads and playing golf, but playing the way they would want to play.
Yeah. Can I say, absolutely agree, but that's by default. Okay. That's not because of what we're seeing on the telly.
Yeah, okay.
So the point of what we're saying is there is, at the bottom end, adventure golf, best thing ever. Families are playing golf together, having fun, and going, this isn't that serious. This is actually great. And mum's going, this is a great way to get the kids off the phone and us four being together. Then you go on the driving range and you go and have a few beers because they've got the technology. You can have a seat and all that, and you can go down with your girlfriends, your boyfriends. You have a bit of fun. You can order a pizza. So it can be fun. So getting into golf is now not the stuffy thing that it was. The routes into golf are the best they've ever been. That's not reflected on the telly.
No, true.
None of that's reflected. So golf isn't, if you're talking about at the top end, it's how does what we see on the telly inspire. Now, you watch the tennis, for an example, they're going at 100 mile an hour. You can't really see what they're doing. No. You might think, I want to have a game of tennis once a year. When you're watching the golf, it kind of looks easy, but there's no bit of what you're watching is going, that's really fun. That looks great. Now, when you watch the Ryder Cup, my mum would watch the Ryder Cup. She's not a golfer. Pro thing's not about anymore, but she'd watch the Ryder Cup because the sheer competitive nature of winning a hole with 3 up. Come and see this. You wouldn't do that in a 72-hole tournament. So I come back to the job of the golf authorities is to inspire generations of people to go, that looks great because of.
Yeah. For me, as while you're saying that, I think about what's the things which inspire me to play. And it honestly is, okay, Ryder Cup, I agree, but actually it's YouTube and it's the shorts on Instagram where I see these YouTubers who are doing it and having fun and laughing on the course and shouting and celebrating. That for me is just, that makes me go, I want to be doing that with my friends.
Yeah. But you've had to go and find that. That's the point I'm sort of making, and probably badly. You've had to go and find that. That stuff is out there, but the Rick Shields, the YouTubers that are doing that is making a difference. But the authorities at the furthest end who put tournaments on and put stuff, they're missing out. Now we look at the Netflix stuff. I get that. But it's only interesting if you're a golfer.
Yeah. But do you know what, though? I think a lot more people, Netflix is brilliant because I think because of the drive to survive, I think a lot more people have given the golf one a go because they've gone, well, drive to survive, let's give golf a go. Like my stepmom, there's a golf one, I'll watch that. Because she's seen it, and there's like the kind of trust they've gained in these kind of exposé documentaries are brilliant. But as you said, there needs to be a proactive, innovative thinking at the top to go, right, how do we connect to the everyday man in that and woman in another way, and the kids. But yeah.
When I was younger, there used to be a thing called the Marley Pro Celebrity, and it was filmed at Turnberry when I was a kid. So we were allowed to go and watch it. And it was 9 holes of Seve played against Lee Trevino. The years I used to go and watch it, Seve one team, Lee Trevino, and they had a celebrity with them play 9 holes. Peter Alice would walk round. Yeah. They would play against each other, alternate shots, or however it was. And he would interview them on the way around.
Yeah.
You've got Niall Horan, you've got Robbie Williams, you've got Anton Deck.
Tom Holland has been.
So many celebrities that love the golf in different ways. So if you really wanted, if you could engage, now I know they do, as we said, the Wentworth thing, but actually doing the 9-hole pro celebrity, showing that person on there. If Niall Horan was on tonight and he's on this and it was advertised, people who wouldn't watch golf would watch golf. Yeah. Because they're going to see him being interviewed and go, I didn't realise how good. The lad who's Spider-Man.
Yeah, Tom Holland.
What a golfer.
Brilliant.
What a golfer.
Yeah.
Watched the shot they hit down 18 from the rough about 3 years ago.
Was that driver off the deck?
Yeah.
Yes, unbelievable.
Right, so we took this. We've never mentioned it before, but it was positioned at the top of the back. I mean swings it like golf. Like
I could say the part which connected most with me was Padraig Harrington was there, Ryder Cup captain. He goes, Padraig, if I get this on the green, can I be on the team for the Ryder Cup? And Patrick goes, if you get this on the green, you're going to be first name in the team. And it's like that kind of interaction there is just...
It humanised it. Yeah. So what you've got is people like my Darcy. Darcy thinks Tom Holland's just dish of the day. Yeah. She loves him. So watching
Put it out to the public, by the way. Tom, if you're listening, I know you're with Zendaya, but Darcy's waiting.
She's lovely. Yeah. But... watching that, she then seen him do it. That, if it's only 1%, makes her think golf's actually quite trendy, isn't it? Because if he Tom Holland is Spider-Man, he's doing it.
That's the thing, and also a lot of girls I've spoken to recently have just been like mixing social groups with someone. What do you do? And I play a bit of golf. They go, yeah, golf's quite cool. I was thinking of taking up golf, and I'm interesting because 10 years ago that would not have been. 5 years ago, that's not the case. Yeah. Anyway, we've got 5 minutes left. Yeah. So I've got 2 questions. Final one is, what's the biggest lesson you can learn in life which you take from golf?
Nothing. We touched on it earlier. Nothing. There's no free lunch. Nothing comes easy. To get good at it, you have to work really hard, and only you can do it. Not if no one else can do it for you. You have to put in the hard yards. You have to hit the balls. And I often say, the more balls you hit, the better you'll hit the balls, because you're practicing and you're and it's not just the repetition. It's the confidence that you build within yourself because you've done it over and over again. So you can't be a good public speaker unless you do it over and over again and you fine tune it. You can't be a good podcaster unless you fine tune it and you're critical of yourself and you set your own bar. Golf's really great for the fact that you have a handicap. So there is a tangible measure to how successful you are or not. Yeah. So you can say, well, I'm a really good podcaster. Well, what handicap podcaster are you? Yeah. And I apply that in my mind to a lot of things. What handicap leader am I? And just because golf has a metric that you can measure, but I know how to get better.
Yeah.
I need to work harder, and I need to analyse that my short game needs to be better.
Yeah.
So I can apply that to any other bit that tech I need to be savvier at this. So whatever it is in my life, you break the constitutional parts down and go, I need to work on that. I need to become better at that. And that can just be better as a person. That could be So it's that anyone, I've said before, anyone could become a professional golfer if you put the hours in. Because it's about repetition and a level of skill, but actually the skill's not that important.
Yeah.
It's actually the hard work to get there.
Yeah.
With the greatest respect, not everybody could become a professional footballer.
Yeah.
But I think 90% of people could be a professional golfer. Now that metaphor is to say you can do anything in life if you're prepared to put the time in.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to put the time in. They want things. The world that we live in today is so throwaway that they just want something instantly.
Yeah.
I see it with my kids. It's like, just want to do something.
Yeah.
Can we just go on holiday? I'm like, now holiday is a reward for working really hard, having more money coming in that's going out, saving that and paying all the bills and being able to reward ourselves. It's a byproduct of everything else.
Yeah.
Can't just go on holiday.
Yeah.
That's a free lunch.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's the same in everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay, final question is, what advice do you give someone who's hesitant to following their dreams?
It's difficult because it depends what your dream is. You know, if you want to be a pilot, it's not as easy as, you know, or you want to be a professional golfer. There is ways and ways to whatever your dream is. I think understanding why it's your dream, understanding what the journey is going to look like, and I don't mean physically mapping it out, but don't blindly follow a dream that's, you know, I want to be 6'3". Well, it's never happening. You know, that's my dream is to be taller. You know, and that for some people that's what they're dreaming. You know, and so it's about being realistic about what you want to do, and set about giving it the time. I really do think you can achieve so much more. There's so much information out there that you could research pretty much anything you wanted to do, and put a strategy in about, you know, you could turn around and say, well, I want to be a professional golfer. You might not make it, but you'll end up being a 4-5 handicap and really enjoying the journey along the way. And then somewhere along the way, you realise that actually being a professional golfer is not always cracked up to be. Yeah. So it's interesting, but I tell you, throwing it back at you, do you think many people actually have a dream?
Well,
I think some people do.
Yeah, I think it's people. I think if they have the time to actually connect to or understand what it is that gives them fulfillment, or even they're finding their passion. Because I think a lot of people don't realise that the dream usually stems from the passion. You know, pursuing that passion and that thing which you're easily good at and you get fulfillment from. Those are the two tick boxes. I mean, for me, those are the two tick boxes. That builds the dream.
It would be interesting to say, like, you've just won the lottery. So money's not. You don't have to go to work. You don't have to do. What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve in the next? And you might say, well, I want to be a pilot. So you can. But it'd be really interesting. I wonder how many people, if you said to them, right, you've now got money doesn't come into it, so it's not about earning money. What would you like to do with your life? You can do anything you want. I wonder how many people could concisely answer and tell you, this is what I'd like to do.
I've done that with a few people and they can't. They haven't spent the time to do it. And if you ask me, I would do pretty much exactly the same. That is, I love doing what I'm doing. Like it's one of those.
But that comes back to what we said earlier, isn't it? That there's, if you've got an objective and you've got a destination you're trying to get to, you're working towards it. It's really interesting. Lots of people don't have a destination.
No, exactly. And especially the younger generation.
Yeah.
Because of all this kind of cloudiness.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. Totally agree.
Right, well, I've thoroughly enjoyed that. We're nearly at 2 hours. Right. Thank you so much for your time and wisdom. It's flown by.
Don't have wisdom, but
trust me, there is wisdom. It is really, really good. So thank you so much for that, Phil.
It's been an honour and a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Valley of Outlaws podcast. If you did enjoy it, please share, like and subscribe, and please tell all your friends about it. We are very excited for where this is going to go. We've got people to speak to, and stories to tell. Thank you.